Welcome back to the garage, everybody. We're working on the old blue Willys again. We're still building this crazy gas tank. So I think you guys have been following along. If not, check out the other parts to this. So here's where we're at with this gas tank. And then this is what we started with, a 3D foam buck, and then made some chipboard templates, and then made those templates into bending, and then we made this. So this is the bottom, or the complete bottom of the tank. So where we left off was with the rough bottom. It's been all tacked together on all the bottom seams now. So the only surface left to trim is the top surface. And the way we did that was basically we just set a tape measure to measure the low point of the tank against the plane of the table. And then we just moved that all the way around the tank in all the different areas around this whole seam here, all the way around, and then trimmed it to the same level. So now the tank is parallel to the top of the table, and we've set the thickness. So now we'll basically be building the top, which will include this little top leg here with these two bends. But other than that, it's pretty much just a top. So now we have to figure out all the stuff that goes on the inside of the tank. And if you've been following along, this is a pretty unconventional tank. It has an L shape with a secondary sump. So a lot of people have been wondering how we're going to move fuel from the forward sump section to the rear section where the fuel pump will be located. So what we're going to do with that is we are going to use a siphon valve. So these aren't uncommon in OEM applications. There are a lot of sedans, specifically like four-wheel drive Subarus and such, that use a siphon valve on the return line to draw fuel from the, I'll call it the subsection, or the secondary sump of the tank into the main tank, and more specifically directly into the fuel pump subassembly. So what I'm going to use on this is basically a 2000s GM SUV, like a Tahoe, fuel pump assembly. So this is the whole entire pump stock assembly. So it has a output line and then a return line. This is emissions, and then everything is self-contained in this unit. So this bottom section here has quite a few nice features for off-road stuff, which includes basically a swirl pot and a one-way siphon valve. So the way this will work with the siphon valve from coming into the return line is it's always going to fill this swirl pot up first, and then if there's extra fuel, it overflows, and it should remove all the bubbles, if there are any, from the siphon line. So the only question I have left is on the siphon line. I am wondering if I should run something like a small Holley hydromat to basically shut off the air bubbles if that forward section, or shut off any chance of sucking air in that venturi leg if the forward section of the tank is dry, or there is no fuel in it. And that will change based on which way the vehicle is pointed. You know, as soon as it goes downhill with a certain amount of fuel in the tank, it will slosh some of that fuel to the forward section, and then we will have to, the siphon pump will pump it back to the rear section. So that's basically my only concern at this point with this system. I haven't been able to find anything in OEM literature that says there's anything to do that, and I think they just deal with the any kind of air bubbles in the siphon line, and then the fuel pump assembly basically swirls or washes them out as they come. So if you have any knowledge of that firsthand, please let me know. Drop a comment below. But anyways, that's where we're at now. And then this is basically, so this is a part from Radium Engineering, and they make this aftermarket, basically jet pump or Venturi valve. So these end fittings here have a adjustable different sizes, so you can regulate how much fuel it's pulling from the siphon leg. And so we have a couple different choices. They advise for a stock pump to use this green, which is, I think, kind of the middle version. So we can go up or down one size in that leg if we find the fuel needing to pump faster or slower, whatever that may be. But generally, this is just a factory fuel pump that will feed the 4.3 in the old blue Willys. It has a pressure and return fuel system, and the regulator is on the rail at the engine. So all that should be pretty easy. There's some stuff to do. This may get clocked 45 to run the hoses this way instead of forward directly over the pumpkin. Not quite sure on that yet. The fuel float for fuel level is there also, and I would like to put, I think this side's easy, I'll put a tank reinforcement rib, or baffle's a bad word, but basically just something to add strength to this section of the tank across the bottom and the back, and then kind of keep fast moving fuel from going side to side. And then I would like to put one over here, but the fuel pickup may get in the way a little bit. I'd like to keep all the lines for the fuel on this side of the car, the cold side. The exhaust and muffler and everything will be along this frame rail. So I'd like to keep the fuel away from this side of the vehicle. But other than that, we'll get this top figured out, and let me know if you have any questions on kind of how this fuel system is going to work, and if you've ever had any experience with that. I looked quite a lot and couldn't find too many people doing it, so it is a little different, but in the end it didn't require any special pumps or secondary transfer and one-way valves and stuff to try and isolate the fuel one place or the other, which I just didn't want to do. I wanted it to be essentially no moving parts, if you will. So there is no moving parts in that Venturi siphon valve. And so all I need is a draw tube pickup with or without maybe a small Holley hydromat on it. But then other than that, the only thing in the fuel system will be the stock GM fuel pump assembly that will be available at any auto parts store in the future for the owner. If you go to whatever, AutoZone will be able to get you one in a day. And that's how I like to build my fuel systems, is trying to make them as OEM as possible. So that's where we're at now. We're going to do the top panel next. I did actually, kind of funny thing, I actually was able to test fit the foam buck back into the metal bottom section, and it actually fit about half the way just by hand without any real persuasion or anything. I didn't want to get it all the way in there and get it stuck, but it was kind of surprising that it went in that far that easy with that many bends and complex things going on. So that was pretty cool. And then the top panel template that we have is definitely close enough to use to make the metal top panel to start that. I will probably fit that and tape it into place, and then go for a test fit under the car in metal, I think. And that way I can directly mark the top panel for mounts and exactly where the fuel pump hole needs to be, and some other things like that. Need to figure out what we're going to do for the skid plate, I think at this point I'm just going to weld a 1/8 inch thick piece of stainless to the bottom of the tank. It's pretty protected by the leaf springs in the corners. I'm not too worried about that. I may bend up around the bottom lip like an inch, but we'll just have to see. That stainless could be kind of hard to bend that way. And this, I think this will work okay. And then that skid plate will actually go up the back of the tank all the way to the bumper, and there's threaded holes in the bottom of the rear bumper, and so that will hold up the back of the tank. There'll be, I think, at least 4 or 5 bolts on the main section of the tank, and then we have to provide some support for the front section of the tank also. And yeah, so it's moving along pretty well. Stuff like this does take time. I thank you a lot for following along. If you like this kind of stuff, please subscribe to the channel down below, and thumbs up and bells and all the whistles and everything. And I appreciate it. And thank you again for following along, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. All right, bye.